On this episode of Mad Ginger Customs, I need a tool. I'm gonna build a tool. We are gonna build a slip roller that will bend 3/8 thick, 4-inch wide metal strap. Let's go. Alright, so, just being honest, that didn't go as planned. For some reason, my plasma table is cutting on a little bit of an angle. I got to reset the nozzle. I replaced the consumables, but all in all, I mean, it does the job. I actually re-drilled every 3/4 inch hole with a bit, and then I used like a Christmas tree bit just to, you know, chamfer it. So basically, these are the components you need. This is a 3.5 inch Schedule 40 pipe, which means the outer diameter is 4 inches, 1/4 inch wall, like so. We are going to weld nuts on the inside of these, and then we are going to weld these to the outside of that, and we're going to cut this thing up into 1-foot sections. This is going to be 12 inches wide. There's really no reason for it to be wider than that for what we're doing. We got a couple other things to figure out, like how we're going to hold down the screw that pushes down. So we'll have to make a couple pieces for that. But other than that, let's get to welding. Try to clean up the mill scale, right? You can kind of throw these in a bath and pickle them and take all that off of there, but we're going to try to TIG it up real quick with the arccaptain 200 TIG 200P AC/DC. This is our whole arccaptain setup on here. That's my TIG welder that is hooked up right now, so that's what we're going to use. The thing works great. If you want one, I'll put it in the description, and I'll give you a discount code to get one if you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to bolt these back together and make sure they're nice and tight so everything fits, so when we start welding it doesn't shift and move around. Blast of the past, didn't have the camera on. I can feel a little bit of breeze on me. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Always let your shielding gas cover your work. I'm trying to get the corners and the back kind of moving around, trying to minimize the warping. I mean, I do have basically 1 inch of material together here. You know, will it warp? Yeah, I mean, I've been known to warp some things. What about you guys? going too far and too hot. It got a little out of shape, not bad, not crazy, but I put some clamps on it when I started to notice it shift. There's a couple spots of porosity on this side. It's not as bad as the other side. That's all pretty good. Next step is getting all the nuts welded to the round back plates that are going to be used for the rollers, right? So we cut our pipe, right? This is 3.5 inch schedule 40 pipe. So what this gives you is a 4-inch outer diameter. I gotta clean up my mess over here. So what we did was we took all of our nuts and we welded them to the circles we cut. And I cut these a little small so I would have room to weld. So, and I had to run a tap through them because I don't know what's up with the hardware store hardware. Like even the nuts don't slide down. Like they didn't thread down well onto the bolts that I bought from them. So basically you're gonna do this, center it up, and blast them in. I might just use the MIG because this is taking way too long. I'm just trying to square it up best I can. You know, being 100% precise is great, but I don't think it's really needed in this case. A couple of guys on Facebook, I post as I go, and I was really not happy with the TIG work because I had some voids, I had some porosity. I don't remember who it was, I should look it up. I think it was Gary. He says, "You making a tool or are you making jewelry?" It's not for a customer, it's for me. It's a piece of equipment we're gonna beat the piss out of. It's gotta work. It's gonna work. It's gonna be awesome. Not spectacular, but it'll hold. Migged out. Migness. Your Migness. Giant Migness. I mean, something like that, right? Oh, these are warm. Oh, that's all hot. You see, Dave, you're rushing again. This is how we rush. We go like this. That's it. That's it. So basically we want something to push down on this, so when we put a piece in there we can tension it and keep rolling it, keep rolling it, keep rolling it as we go down. Now this way, I mean, we could put something massive in here which never will bend with this. Guys, I kind of wish I made this with 3/8. I think I already said that. So I think we're gonna do a brace here, do a brace here, and I actually may do some underneath because this will never come down this low, you know? What do you guys think? Put in the comments. Brace in the front, brace in the back, then maybe 2 in the middle, or maybe 1 in the middle. Put in the comments. All right, so a couple thoughts for the drive to drive the center wheel or drum down. I drew up something on the plasma table to make a bracket here that welds a nut to it that ends up having bracing, and I don't know if any of that's needed, and I don't know if it even work. I found these threaded barrels. Basically it's like a large nut you can join 2 pieces of threaded rod. They are not hardened, they are not grade 8. I don't know if they're gonna hold up. We'll try them. worst case scenario, we'll just cut them back off and then we'll put something. I think what I want is a very fine thread, almost like if you had a puller. You know, you get that hardened puller center pin that's very fine thread. I said, you know, in my mind I go, I probably want a fine thread and I want it hardened, but I can't just find that locally, so maybe I'll report back if this even works and we'll go from there. So I think this is where I want it. And I'm just gonna weld it. So I'm gonna tack it here, I'm gonna tack it here, and I'm just gonna run a bead up each side. It may or may not work, but we'll find out together, and I'll just tell you honestly, and like, yeah, it's failed and here's why, or here's what I wanna do different. So we'll go from there. So I'm just gonna blast these in. While I was waiting for UPS to show up with my 6-inch grade 8 3/4 bolts for this, I figured I might as well clean these up. So when you guys are done making this, I don't necessarily know how important it is for these things to like freewheel. They just have to move, you know what I mean? Like, I'm hitting the bolt on this side, but you get the idea. So, you know, they need to move. So make sure that you're not, you know, either a little kind of off camber here, or, you know, what I did was I took the 3/4 inch drill bit and I just kind of reamed them in and out, gave them a little wallow. I think if I was to cut it again, somebody asked me about the file. They said, did you make that file or did you buy that file? I made it, I drew it in Fusion. I think I'll make the holes 0.80 instead of 0.75. Or something like that, maybe 0.78 probably, just so they're a little bit bigger, because you can be bigger. I was like, man, it's got to be like really tight tolerances. It doesn't. It's really just pushing down, so really it doesn't have to be tight tolerances at all. And thinking about it, I probably should have maybe slotted it, and then I could just move it. I saw another guy on YouTube who did that, and that looked pretty cool. So, you know, just take it for what it is. This is just one rendition of, you know, you guys have seen a million slip rollers on YouTube, I'm sure. And this is just my version of everything I've seen, just like you would make one and you would make changes from like looking at mine or looking at someone else's. We're gonna wait for those bolts, and maybe we'll throw a coat of paint on it while we're waiting, because we got nothing else to do. When we come back, we're bending stuff. Look at my finger, I got it good yesterday. I paid $40 something, not on the packing slip. I paid like $41 to have 2 bolts delivered. $41! And no one had them. You know who has this stuff? McMaster Car. I'm not sponsored by McMaster Car, but they're in New Jersey and I'm in Connecticut, and they're a 1-day ship for me. So this is a 6-inch 3/4 10 thread grade 8. Out the bottom. So the premise of this is, if you've never seen such an apparatus, this is going to push down against this bolt, and we're going to drive them evenly, and if you drive them crooked, you will curve this, right? This is 3/8 thick, 4 inches wide, right? 3/8 here, 4 inches wide this way. My goal is to bend 1/4 by 4. So if it can bend 3/8 by 4, we're good. I also want to do 12-inch by like 1/8, because I want to do, you know, fire pit rings, or maybe like a tree ring or something, you know? Got a new business starting. It's not going to be on YouTube. All right, so this is sitting down on here. So what we want to do is we just want to touch, right? That's just touching. And then we're going to evenly turn these. So since I used a 3/4 bolt, this is 1 1/8 inches. socket. Oh, it's 12 point. I don't like that, but whatever, that's what we're going with. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drive these down the same amount. So that's half a turn, 1 turn, half a turn. I don't know if that's too much or too little. That's a lot of thread, actually. And this is half a turn. Oh, jeez. 1 turn, half a turn. I can hear the scale cracking on this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to turn that, to be honest with you. That might be a little too much. But let's see. So you have to go opposite sides because you're tightening into your drum because that has the welded nut on the inside, right? So we're going to roll it this way, like this. And we're not going to walk it off the roller here, right? We can't walk it off the roller. As you can tell by the scale, can you see the scale cracking? This thing's already bending. So I'm going to get it right, literally right to the edge, and hopefully it doesn't fall off. Right, like that. And now we're going to get on this side, and we're going to bring it back the other way. I mean, it's not crazy difficult. Then we hit the flat spot where we started from. And I can hear the scale crackling. We're gonna get right to the edge, right here. Now, we are gonna go probably not as much. Maybe, this is very coarse thread. Maybe a 1/4 turn. Let's see what a 1/4 turn does. So if I'm here, that's a 1/4 turn. And that's a 1/4 turn. So we're going to bring it back. I'm going to move you guys over here. I'll let you know when I'm out of breath. It's honestly not difficult. I don't feel like I'm straining myself. This is hot rolled. That's why it's got scale on it. Okay. Now we're going to go again, another 1/4 turn, I think. And we're going to go back this way. And I'm using a breaker bar, but I suppose you could just use a ratchet. The more leverage you have, the easier this is, especially if you got, you know, bad shoulders. Well guys, I'd consider that a success. So would the crow outside. Look at the bend on that thing. That's 90 degrees. Sorry, bug in the way. That's straight up and down. Look at this thing. It's freaking awesome. That is 3/8 by 4 inch wide. I think this thing would do 1/2 inch. Maybe not 4 inch wide, but it might. It'll definitely do 1/4 by 4. But man, I'm so happy with this. Let's try to get it out of there, see what that looks like. I'm gonna use the impact because that's way easier. But I think if I had a longer breaker bar, and I'm definitely gonna go grade 8 on these. I think the ones on the outside are holding. I'm just gonna get grade 8 for all of them. So it took off a little paint on this side, which means I was pushed to this side, so probably too much pressure on this one right here, right? This is the scale that came off. Look at this arc. Look at my appropriate footwear. Look at the arc in this thing. That's insane for being that thick. That is thick. Like, that's my finger. That's thick. She's thick. I'm sweating. It's so humid, guys. It's not even hot, it's just the humidity. So that's it, right there. Let's wrap it up. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Mad Ginger Customs. This thing does exactly what we built it to do. Now, you guys watched me build this. I used my plasma table, I used a TIG welder at one point. You guys don't need to do any of that to build something like this. You can make this like a shape of a triangle. You can cut it with a 4.5 inch death wheel, cut-off wheel. You know, step up your bits to a 3/4 inch hole. You know, there's no like major manufacturing here. You know, you got 3.5 inch pipe, which is technically 4 inch OD. You're gonna cut out circles for that. You could use a hole saw, weld them on. These are just coupling fittings, and then a little bit of hardware, some 3/4 inch hardware. So what are we into this for cost? I think the hardware actually cost me more than the metal did. And honestly, I'm into the hardware for probably $120 because of the fact I bought a lot of it at a local hardware store, which is excessively expensive. And then I had to order some that I didn't have. If you pick and choose and then you buy online and you buy early, which I had to rush things to get this video out, you can save yourself a significant amount of money. I am going to change these out to a grade 8. This seems to work okay. I am going to lubricate the threads in here. I should have done that, and I should put some lubricant in here. That would make this whole ordeal easier. I'm sure you guys were screaming at the screen, put some grease in there. Yeah, no kidding. You guys are right, 100%. I think overall I'm into this thing for way less than 200 bucks. I did have the 1/4 inch plate, but a whole sheet of 4x8 is only like, I don't know, $180. I just used this much of it, tiny a bit. The bracing on the bottom was from my scrap bin. And, you know, it's mostly just labor, but I have seen these just like this for sale for upwards of $2,000. Now, I don't want to discount that price and say these aren't worth that, because if you don't have the ability to make it and you need this device, it actually works well. And if you got to spend the $2 grand and you're using it to make money, then you just spend the money. I thought this was a fun little project. I need this because we're going to be starting another business outside of YouTube where we're going to need this exact thing to bend the exact stuff, but it's going to be 1/4 inch. So I bent 3/8, 4 inch wide. This thing would bend 1/2 inch. I'm sure should have no problem with 1/4, and you can put a 12 inch and I can put 1/8 inch through it, so I can make, you know, fire pit rings or something like that if we cut them out on the plasma table. I'd like to thank Arccaptain Welders for coming to the party. I really enjoyed the TIG 200P. We also have the MIG 200 and the Cut 50. We have the whole line. These things are great. I have a link in the description. I do have a discount code in there too if you want to buy one. I can save you some money. I'd also like to thank the Buy Us a Coffee guys that support the channel. Mike Hill, you can look up his YouTube channel, Hillstration. I'd also like to thank James Bender, because he bought some coffees on the Buy Us a Coffee link. We really appreciate it. We also have our Amazon links in the description, so if you guys want to buy stuff there, it doesn't cost you anything and it helps the channel out. And guys, just remember, if you need to build something like this, you absolutely can. And you watch me do it, and if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.